Begin in a seated position on your mat. You can grab a blanket or a pillow if you feel more comfortable doing that. Kind of sits you upright just a little bit more. And crossing the legs or sending them out nice and long in front of you, whatever's comfortable for you. I'm just going to draw the shoulders down and back, create some length in the neck. Rest the hands on the thighs. And take 3 nice long deep breaths in through the nose. And then exhale through the mouth. And drawing the right shoulder down to the right ear. And then take your gaze upward. And then left shoulder down to left ear. And then chin to chest. Taking circles with the neck. Stopping at each of those points, each of those quadrants, to stretch out the muscles of the neck, not pushing through anything if it's bothersome this morning. Noticing those areas of tension and where you can give them a little bit of extra time. And then reverse your direction, bringing the right ear to right shoulder, chin to chest, and left ear to left shoulder, and looking up. Let's take 2 more here. And then coming back to center, taking your gaze over that right shoulder and coming back through center to take your gaze over the left shoulder. And just alternating between these two. To finally bring your gaze back to center. You're going to drop your right ear down toward your right shoulder. Taking your right hand to lift up and over to gently pull that ear down to the shoulder a little bit more. Reach those fingertips out nice and long toward the floor. Maybe walking them away from you, dropping that shoulder down. Walking the fingers toward the back of the head to draw the forehead down toward that right knee. And then releasing, coming back up to center, taking the head so that the left ear comes down to the left shoulder, reaching out nice and long through the right fingertips. Breathing into that space in the neck. Walking the fingertips back behind the head as you draw the forehead down toward the left knee. Great, releasing back to center. You're going to remove your pillow or your block if you were sitting on that. Go ahead and send those legs out nice and wide out in front of you. Stretch out nice and long. It's okay if your feet have to come together just a little bit. The objective here is how tall can you sit up? And then inhale to grow as tall as you can, and exhale coming into a forward fold, hinging at those hips. You should feel a nice little stretch in the back of the hamstrings here. And begin to walk your hands off to the right side so that your shoulders square off to the right foot. Again, inhaling to grow tall, exhaling to forward fold. So not rounding at the spine here, but rather growing tall. It's not about how much you can get down towards your leg, as opposed to how long you can keep the spine. And then release, walking the hands back up, squaring up the shoulders to center. Begin to hinge it forward at the hips, walking those fingertips out in front of you. Inhale, exhaling to release into that stretch a little bit deeper. And then gently walking the fingertips off to the left, squaring the shoulders off to the left foot. Again, checking in with the spine. How long can you get your spine? And then releasing, coming into a forward fold just a little bit more. And walking the hands back through center. And then pressing it back up so you sit up nice and tall. Bring that left foot in to meet the right thigh. You're going to take the back of the hand to the inside of the knee. And then reach the left arm up nice and high to the sky. And exhale as you come to a side bend over that right leg. Anchoring that hip down to the floor, creating length in the left side body. Take your gaze upward underneath your elbow. Coming back up through center, releasing and switching your feet out so that opposite foot comes into the thigh. The back of the hand comes down inside the knee as you float the right hand up to the sky. And then exhale, coming into a side bend to the left, creating length in the right side body. Breathing into that rib space, expanding every time you inhale. And then coming back up through center, go ahead and send your legs out nice and long in front of you. Inhale to grow tall, and then exhale, coming into a forward fold. Hands either come down to the shins, the ankles, or maybe they can reach the toes today. If not, that's okay. One long, deep breath here. And then walking the hands back up the legs. Coming into a cross-legged position here. You're going to inhale to grow tall, and then exhale to come into a spinal twist as you take your gaze over to the right. Using the hand to kind of push you into that twist just a little bit more. It's very gentle though. Just kind of bringing out the spine, waking up each of those vertebrae, all of the tiny muscles that support our spine. And then release, coming back through center, taking the twist over to the left. Staying as tall as you can, not putting too much weight on that back hand. And breathing, exhaling. Every time you exhale, you come into that twist just a little bit deeper. And then working your way onto the hands and knees, coming into your tabletop position. Taking a couple of rounds of cat-cow here, dropping the belly down, take your gaze upward, and then rounding that spine, taking the gaze toward the thighs. Moving at your own pace here, just warming up the spine, stretching out the abdominal muscles every time you look up, and then activating the abdominal muscles every time you look down. Great job. Come back into your tabletop here. So we're going to take the right foot out to the side, toes point forward. The foot is flat on the floor. You're just rocking back and forth here, trying to get a nice stretch of that right inner thigh. And then taking the right knee back underneath your hips and the left leg out nice and long up to the side, toe points forward as you begin to rock back and forth. Bringing that knee underneath your hip again. You're going to draw that belly button into the spine so that you're active in the core. The low back is flat. And we're going to alternate lifting the arm up, right arm, left arm, so that the thumbs point up to the ceiling every time you lift up. And try to imagine you have a glass of water that's trying to stay stabilized between your shoulder blades. So how still can you keep the spine? How active can you be in your core, in your shoulders? I'm taking two more. Great job. Now rock back onto your heels to release any pressure from the hands. Go ahead and take a couple of wrist rolls here, just to bring some blood flow back into the wrists, and then twisting, going the opposite direction. And then opening the hands and closing the fingers to make fists. And just alternating between these two, feeling a nice stretch in between those fingers, bringing blood flow to those little joints, those spaces. Coming back onto the hands and knees for tabletop. We're doing the same thing, drawing that belly button up and in. Now we're taking the heel toward the back of the mat and back down, and then alternating between these two, right and left, really engaging the glute muscles. Again, imagine you have a glass of water resting on your low back that you're trying not to spill. So that kind of forces you to keep your hip points facing the ground equally on both sides. And one more on each side. You got it. Good job. Taking the pressure off of your wrists if you need that again. And we're going to take one more exercise here. So coming back onto the hands and knees, you're going to lift the right knee up and out to the side so that the shin is parallel with the floor, and come back down. You're going to do that for 5, 4, really getting into that outer hip, 2, and 1. Release that knee back down to the floor. Shift your weight over onto that right knee as you begin to hover the left knee up and out to the side for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Release that knee back down to the earth. Walk the hands out in front of you, spreading those fingers out nice and long. Allow that index finger to point forward. Tuck the toes and send the hips up and back into your first downward facing dog. Allow the knees to bend softly if that's what you need this morning. Maybe you're not that open in the back of the thigh or the calf muscle yet. That's okay. Great job. Take your gaze up between the hands. Lift up through your core as you begin to walk the toes up to meet the hands at the top of your mat. Bend those knees softly, allowing the head to become heavy, the belly rests on the thighs, grabbing opposite arm to opposite elbow. Just begin to rock from side to side for ragdoll. Feeling that space you're creating in the low back, allowing that head to become heavy, the shoulders pull down to the floor. And then release the hands down to the floor, continuing to keep the shoulders and head heavy. Begin to straighten the knees and roll it up into your mountain pose. Head is the very last thing that comes up. Spiraling the arms so that the palms face the front of your mat. Standing nice and tall, gently lifting the kneecaps by engaging the thighs. Tucking the chin back so that the ears are over the shoulders here. That's called the cervical retraction. That's a great exercise to do to work on your posture or whenever you're generally having some neck discomfort. Lacing the fingers together, you're going to press down into the floor and then inhale to reach up overhead. And then exhale to release the hands back down by your side. Taking that 4 more times here, working at your own pace. Inhaling every time you reach up, and then exhaling every time you reach down. Great job. Release, coming back down into your mountain pose. You're going to step the right foot back along the back of your mat, coming down into your warrior 2. Front knee is over the ankle as you float the right and left hands out to the side, reaching out from fingertip to fingertip, allowing that front hip to open up just a little bit. So you're going to feel some activation in that hip. Rotating the front palm up to face the sky. Exhale as you come back into reverse warrior, sinking it down into that front thigh there, creating a little heat. Windmilling the arm so that the front elbow comes to the front knee, reaching the right fingertip all the way down to the ankle for extended side angle. Pivoting on that back foot so that your hips square off to the front of your mat. Hands come down to frame that front foot for high lunge. Chest is proud, taking your gaze upward, drawing those shoulder blades down and back. And finally, releasing that back knee down to the floor and untucking the toes. There is the option to stay here, the option to sweep the arms up overhead and sink it down a little bit more. Finding your breath, some stability. Maybe you want to come into a little baby back bend here, noticing the experience that you get in the front of the right hip. Stretch. And then bringing those arms back down to your side. Begin to heel toe that left foot off to the outer edge of your mat. Now the hands are going to be on the inside of that foot in the center of your mat. This is lizard pose here. An option to tuck the back toe to hover the knee off the floor. Notice that strength building that you get in the quadricep of that right thigh. And then exhale, release that knee back down to the earth, untuck the toe, and heel toe that left foot back into the center of your mat. Tuck that back toe and hover the knee again as you plant the hands and step your left foot back into your high plank. Finding your breath here, pressing into the floor for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Send the hips up and back into downward facing dog. Great job. Release the shoulders away from the ears. Head is heavy. Again, taking your gaze up between the hands. Step or walk your feet up to meet the top of your mat. Rolling it up into your mountain pose. Vertebrae by vertebrae. Head is the last thing that comes up. Drawing the shoulder blades down and back to stand tall. Ears are stacked over the shoulders. Stepping the feet together so that the big toes are touching. Gently pressing the thighs together, very gently. And then sweep the arms up overhead as you sink your hips down and back. Shifting your weight into the heels. Should be able to see the toes past your knees. And soften the shoulders away from the ears as you reach up through those fingertips for chair pose. Finding your breath, sinking it down a little bit deeper. Inhale to stand up, and then exhale, coming back down into your chair pose. We're going to take that for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Release, coming back up to tall mountain, resting the hands down by your side. Great job. So shifting your weight over onto that right leg. This is a balance pose, so if you feel like you want a wall or a chair nearby you to hold on, I'm going to take tree here so the sole of the foot comes to the inner shin or the inner part of the thigh. Finding that rooting down into the floor with that standing leg. Engaging the outer hip muscles as you grow tall. Hands can come to heart center. Maybe they float overhead. Finding your focal point in front of you can be beneficial. Finding some stability, some balance here. Allowing the ankle to make those little micro adjustments. And then exhale, release, hands come down to heart center. With control, bringing that foot back down to the earth. Great job. Shifting your weight over onto the left foot, bringing the sole of the foot to the inner shin or the inner thigh. Rooting down through that left foot as you engage the outer hip muscles. Hands can come to heart center or float overhead. You might notice some differences between one side versus the other here. Great job. Hands come down to heart center and then gently releasing that foot back down to the earth with control. Coming back up to the top of your mat, you're going to step your left foot back behind you now so we can come into your reverse warrior or your warrior 2 on the other side. Floating those arms out nice and long, reaching fingertip to fingertip. Taking your gaze down that front arm. Rotating that right hip open. Flipping that palm up, and then exhale, release, bringing that right hand up and overhead. Sinking down into that front thigh just a little bit more. Windmilling those arms so that the front elbow comes to the front knee. As you exhale, releasing, reaching that left finger overhead, continuing to sink down into that front thigh. Engaging those hip muscles, staying soft in the shoulders, but active in the core. Pivoting on that back foot, you're going to rotate to face the front of your mat. Hands frame that front foot, drawing those shoulders down and back as you Bring the chest forward into your high lunge or your low lunge. Releasing that left knee down to the floor and untucking the back toe. Inhale to lift up. Maybe you want to reach the arms up overhead and sink it down into that front thigh just a little more. That knee shouldn't go over the toe, so if it is, that means you need to walk your foot forward just a little bit. Release the hands back down to the floor, heel-toeing that right foot off and out to the outside of your mat. The hands come down into the center of your mat. Tucking the back toe, you're gonna hover that knee up off the floor for lizard pose. Feeling the activation in the left thigh as you gently lift the kneecap. And then release that knee down to the floor, untuck that toe, and heel toe that right foot into the center of your mat. Plant the hands firmly on the floor as you tuck the back toe once again to lift the knee and step that right foot back into your high plank, again, pushing away from the floor. Finding your breath. And then releasing the knees down to the floor, sending the hips back into your child's pose, reaching the fingers up overhead. Staying active in the shoulders. Allow your forehead to rest on the mat, or you can rest your forehead on a block or a pillow, whatever is comfortable for you. I'm going to take a little mobility drill here for the shoulders. So we definitely want the neck to feel supported and comfortable. And when you're ready, reach those arms out nice and long overhead. On the left hand, you're going to roll your thumb up toward the sky as you lift it up off the floor, and then bring the hand down by your side so that the thumb faces the floor. We're just rotating between these two positions, so we're going overhead and down and back. Reaching up and overhead, and down and back. So this is engaging a lot of the muscles that support the shoulder girdle, especially your muscles that are responsible for keeping your shoulders down and back when you are trying to improve your posture. And let's take two more on the left side. Good job. So release, coming back up, overhead. Whew. On the right hand now, you're gonna roll your thumb up toward the sky so that the pinky rests on the floor. Hover that pinky off the floor as you lift the arm up, and then rotate so that out to the side, the palm faces the floor. And then as you come down by your side, your thumb faces the floor. And then back out to the side, palm faces the floor, and then overhead, pinky faces the floor. We're just rotating between these two positions here, kind of going up and back. Trying to stay soft in the jaw, soft in the shoulder. And two more here. Great job. Release up overhead. You can remove your pillow or your block off to the side that was under your forehead. Go ahead and work your way into tabletop again. You're going to plant that right hand in the center of your mat as you lift the left hand up behind the head. You're going to exhale to bring the right or the left elbow to the right hand, and then inhale to look up and under. And you're just rotating back and forth like this, creating some mobility in the spine. And then releasing that left hand down into the center, bringing the right hand behind the head, taking 5 rotations on the other side. Great job. Now releasing that hand down to the center. Go ahead and find your way onto your seat. So send those legs out nice and long in front of you, really reaching through the heels, drawing the toes up to the shins. Sitting up nice and tall. allowing the shoulders to fall down and back. And as you exhale, release, coming into that forward fold, noticing any changes you might feel in your length of the muscles in the back of the legs compared to what you did when you did this the first time. And then release, walking the hands back up. You're going to hug the left knee in toward your chest here. Again, sitting tall, drawing the right toes up to the shin. Go ahead and hover your right leg up off the floor. You're going to draw 10 circles clockwise. 5, 7, getting into the hip flexors. And then release, coming down to the floor. Reset, sit tall, and then hover that right foot up again as you do 10 counterclockwise circles. So going in the opposite direction here. 9, 10, and then release that right heel down to the floor. Go ahead and switch your feet out, sending that left leg out nice and long. Sitting up as tall as you can, hover the left foot off the floor and draw 10 circles clockwise here. And then reverse your direction. You can take a rest in between if you need to. 7, 8, 9, 10. Great job. Release, coming back down to the floor. Again, sending that left leg out nice and long. You're going to crisscross that left foot over the right knee as you come into a little spinal twist on the left. Getting into that outer hip, rotating at the spine. And then swapping those feet out, crisscrossing the right foot over the left now. Growing tall as you come into your spinal twist to the right. And then releasing. Go ahead and reset here. So how tall can you sit up? And you're going to float the feet off of the floor so that the shins are parallel with the mat. For boat pose here, you have the option to grab behind the thighs. You also have the option to send the hands out long by the shins. Maybe trying to straighten one leg and then the other, noticing how that feels in the core. Playing around with pointed toes and flexed toes. And then release, bringing those feet back down to the earth. Great job. Boat pose is a great core activator here. Again, we're going to take that, lifting those feet up off of the floor, sending the arms up nice and long. But this time you're going to lower down to the floor and then inhale to lift it back up. So we're taking 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great job. Release the feet down to the floor. Send the arms out nice and long in front of you as you begin to lower, lower, lower down to the floor. Hovering right before your head comes down to the floor. And then release. Maybe allowing the soles of the feet to come together and letting the knees fall out to the side for a recline bound angle pose. If this is uncomfortable at all for the hip joints, you can use your hands to support you, or you can come right out of this. Finding your breath, some ease, maybe a smile. And then release the knees, coming back up through center. Placing your hands down by your side. Begin to walk the heels up toward your seat. Press into the floor with those palms as you press your hips up toward the sky here. For bridge pose. Begin to walk your shoulder blades together to open up across the chest. Maybe lacing your fingers together underneath your hips. Pressing the fingers down toward the heels. Can you engage those glutes a little bit more to lift your hips up even higher to the sky? You might get a little cramping It's not necessarily a bad thing. That just means you're using muscles that you haven't had to use. And then release, coming back down one spinal segment at a time here. Stepping those feet out nice and wide off to the edges of your mat. Just gonna rotate the knees from side to side, creating this windshield wiper effect. And then walk those feet back together. You're gonna kind of sit on the backs of your hands, kind of on the thumbs, as you lift the feet up to the sky. Try to draw your belly button down and into the floor so that your back is flat. You're gonna exhale as you lower the feet down, trying to keep that back flat with the mat. Once you feel like it starts to pop off, stop there, and then return back up to the starting position. Exhale, lower down, keeping that back flat with the mat. Inhale, lift it up. Exhale, lower down. Inhale to lift up. 2 more. And 1 more. Great job. Release those feet back down to the earth. Allow the abdomen to relax a little bit. So we're going to take something similar here, but we're going to add a little rotation component to it. So allow the arms to come out to the side in a T position. Palms face the floor. Lift your feet off of the floor so that your shins are parallel with the mat. So I kind of have this 90-degree angle at the hips and the knees. And then you're going to draw that belly button in to make the back flat with the mat. Begin to lower your knees off to the right. Trying to stay active here. And then use that core to lift you back up through center as you come off to the left. Lowering down. Use that core to lift you back up through center. And then exhale off to the right. And to the left. Taking 2 more on each side. Getting into those obliques. And then releasing those feet back down to the floor. Great job. So we're going to take a couple of rounds of bridge pose here, but we're coming into a little float. But the trick here is I want you to lift your toes up. So you're kind of digging the heels into the ground now. So you're going to inhale to lift the hips up, floating the arms overhead, pressing into the heels, and then exhale to lower it back down. Inhale to lift up. Exhale to lower back down. Good job. Take 2 more. Digging those heels into the ground, keeping the toes lifted. Great job. Release the feet back down to the floor. So now what you're going to do is turn your toes inward to face each other. So you're kind of creating like a pigeon toe. And we're going to do the same thing. So inhale to lift, hips up to the sky, noticing some changes you might be feeling in the back of the thighs, so in that hamstring area. Last one here. And then release. Great job. Now you're going to rotate your toes so that they're turned outward, so like you're duck-footed. Inhale to lift up, and then exhale to lower back down, noticing some changes you might be feeling here. And again, you might be experiencing some cramping. That's okay. This will get better as you do these more often. Great job. Release, coming back down to the floor. Go ahead and send your feet up nice and high to the sky. Softly bending the knees, grabbing either the shins or the outer edges of your feet. You're going to draw the knees down toward the floor as you glue your shoulders down to the floor. Trying to bring the tailbone down to the floor as well. Noticing how that opens up your hip sockets just a little bit more. For happy baby pose, you can begin to rock from side to side, massaging that low back. Maybe you want to add a little movement here, straightening out one leg and then the other leg as you rock from side to side. And then releasing those feet down to the floor, taking the arms out wide, feet out wide. windshield wipering the knees from side to side to get that spinal rotation. And taking any other pose that you feel like your body might need before we come into your final resting pose. Option to grab any blankets or pillows that you think you might need to feel comfortable during Shavasana. And then coming back to center, go ahead and send your legs out nice and long, allowing the toes to fall open, the palms to face the sky as your arms come down by your hands come down by your hips. Making any final adjustments your body might need. Begin to feel your body's contact with the floor. As you inhale deeply through the nose to fill up the belly. And then exhaling to release any tension. Feel the back of the head heavy into your mat, and the shoulders are soft away from the ears, but heavy into the floor. Relax the crown of your head and your forehead, the space between the eyebrows. Allow your eyelids to be heavy and your eyeballs to fall back into the eye sockets behind the eyelids. Release any tension between the eyebrows, around the eyes, the jaw, the cheeks. Let your teeth separate a little bit, allowing the tongue to rest on the roof of your mouth. Relax the throat and the neck. Release any tension across the chest. Allow your arms to become heavy and your forearms to melt into the floor. Your fingers have a slight curl to them. They're not holding on to any tension. Just letting go. Your heart is open. Your chest is relaxed. Your belly, your abdominal muscles, pelvis, the hip sockets in the hip, they're all relaxed. Feel the back of your body melting into the floor. Your thighs are relaxed, your kneecaps release. Backs of the thighs and the calves are heavy. Ankles and toes and the soles of the feet all relax. Feel that energy releasing through the soles of the feet. And as you draw your attention from the soles of the feet, breathe in as you breathe in all the way up to the top of the head. And then as you exhale, you're releasing from the crown of the head all the way down to the soles of the feet. Pausing momentarily at any areas of tension that might need a little extra breath. And begin to make small movements with your toes and your fingers. At your own pace and at your own time. And roll over onto your side. Continuing to let the eyes be closed and your head is heavy. Pressing into the floor with that top hand. Work your way up to a seated position. Again, the head stays heavy. Come up into a cross-legged position, allowing the palms to rest softly on the knees. Sitting up nice and tall with your ears over the shoulders. Feeling the energy that you've just created in the body and sitting tall. And you carry this energy with you throughout your day, your week, until we meet again. And thank you for sharing this practice today, on this day.